Protest leaders say they will not leave the streets until the military hands over to a civilian government. Mr. Bashir's downfall followed months of unrest that began in December over rising prices. Mr. Ibn Awuf was head of military intelligence during the Darfur conflict in the 2000s, and the U.S. imposed sanctions on him in 2007. Now, the new man in charge is also a top military figure, but the Associated Press news agency reports that his record is cleaner than other Sudanese generals. He is also said to have met with protesters to hear their views. Now, despite Mr. Bashir's removal on Thursday, demonstrators had refused to disperse, camping out outside army headquarters in the capital Khartoum in defiance of a curfew. In the final stages of a long campaign, Indonesian President Joko Widodo and his rivals make their final push for the presidential and legislative elections. Indonesian President Joko Widodo went to opposition territory to deliver his message of better services, hope, and religious tolerance.
Antusias sangatlah tinggi untuk Bapak Jokowi. Jadi pengen foto bersama itu sangat luar biasa. Jadi kami hanya bisa mengamankan Bapak Jokowi supaya tidak terkena yang tidak diinginkan.
Prabowo! Prabowo!
Meanwhile, Indonesian presidential candidate Prabowo Subianto holds his final campaign rally in the city Surabaya in East Java. Subianto, an ex-military general, is a challenger to incumbent President Joko Widodo.
Prabowo pernah korupsi atau tidak? Saudara-saudara, ada psikologis tentara, yaitu prajurit tempur paling benci sama koruptor.
Menstabilkan harga sembako, Mas. Mama ini kan tujuannya kan untuk menurunkan harga sembako, pasar listrik, terus BBM-nya.
A strong 6.8 magnitude earthquake rocked eastern Indonesia on Friday, reportedly killing one person and triggering a brief tsunami warning that sent panicked residents fleeing to higher ground. Reports said there are still aftershocks happening. The quake struck at a relatively shallow depth of 17 kilometers off the east coast of Sulawesi Island, according to the USGS, where a 7.5 magnitude quake tsunami around the city of Palu killed more than 4,300 people last year. 3 light to moderate aftershocks occurred in the same area following the initial quake Friday, according to USGS. Indonesia's disaster agency issued a tsunami warning for coastal communities in Morowali district, where residents were advised to move away from the coast. The warning was later lifted by the agency, which had estimated the wave at under a half a meter or 20 inches. The USGS warned that considerable damage was possible in poorly built or badly designed structures. Britain's High Commissioner to India laid a wreath on Saturday on the 100th anniversary of the Amritsar massacre, one of the worst atrocities of colonial rule for which London is still to apologize. Take a look. The Jallianwala Bagh massacre is, as it is known in India, saw British troops fire on thousands of unarmed men, women, and children in the northern city of Amritsar on the afternoon of April 13, 1919. Even 100 years on, Britain has still made no official apology. In a visit in 2013, then British Prime Minister David Cameron described what happened as deeply shameful but stopped short of an apology. In 1997, Queen Elizabeth II laid a wreath at the site, but her gaffe-prone husband, Prince Philip, stole the headlines by reportedly saying that Indian estimates for the death count were vastly exaggerated. On Wednesday, British Prime Minister Theresa May told the House of Commons that the massacre was a shameful scar on British Indian history, but she too avoided saying she was sorry. In other news, no need to sound the world's loudest public health alarm about the lingering Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. An expert panel convened by the World Health Organization in Geneva decided today the controversial decision not to declare what is known as a public health emergency of international concern comes as the outbreak has sickened at least 1,206 people, killing 63% of them. A recent spike in cases had prompted WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus to convene the 11-member panel. Let's listen in.
The emergency committee almost unanimously decided against recommending to the Director General of WHO to declare a public health emergency of international concern.
Everyone here agrees that we must do everything possible to end this outbreak as soon as possible. The fact that a FEC has not been declared makes no difference to our commitment or our ability to fight this outbreak. This outbreak is occurring in an area that has suffered from decades of conflict. We're working hard to strike a balance between protecting health workers and patients and securing the trust of communities. We're calling on the international community to step up its financial commitment to ending the outbreak. We cannot intensify our efforts if we don't have enough funds.
WHO today also released for the first time information about the impact of the still experimental Ebola vaccine, which is made by Merck of Kenilworth, New Jersey. Public health workers have been administering the vaccine in an attempt to create rings of immunity around infected individuals. So far, they've vaccinated 97,000 people, and a preliminary analysis shows the vaccine's efficacy is 97.5%. Vaccine teams in the DRC created vaccine rings around 776 cases, but security concerns there are 20 armed insurgency groups in the area, and community reluctance to be vaccinated have prevented vaccine teams from creating rings around 175 cases. Of the 71 Ebola cases that occurred in vaccinated people, only 15 became ill 10 or more days after receiving the shot. None of those 15 people died. In the 56 people who became ill within 10 days of being vaccinated, there were 9 deaths, far less than expected, a strong indication that they received partial protection.
What I can say at this point is that the vaccine is demonstrating remarkable efficacy against infection, and therefore we have to get the message to communities that this vaccine is highly effective. We are learning every day how to do this better. We are learning how to respond to the demands of the community, and we evolve the response. We don't change it. We evolve our tactics to meet the challenges on the ground while trying to still implement this strategy.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is willing to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump a third time if Washington comes to the table with the right attitude, according to state media. Kim also said he would wait until the end of the year for the U.S. to make a courageous decision on another meeting after his most recent summit with Trump in Vietnam broke down and both sides left without an agreement. In a speech to Pyongyang's rubber stamp parliament on Friday, Kim said the Hanoi meeting had made him question whether Washington is genuinely interested in improving its relations with Pyongyang. He said, "We are willing to give another try if the U.S. officers, with the U.S. to try if the U.S. officers to have a third summit with the right attitude and mutually acceptable terms," he said. According to a report by North Korean state media outlet KCNA, Kim said his personal relationship with Trump is still good, but that he had no interest in a third summit if it is a repeat of Hanoi. The U.S. said recently that it is thinking again of a third DPRK-U.S. summit and have been strongly implying problem solving through dialogue. Kim continued, but they continue to ignore the basic way of the new DPRK-US relations, including withdrawing hostile policies, and mistakenly believe that if they pressure us to the maximum, they can subdue us. At a summit with South Korean President Moon in Washington on Thursday, Trump expressed a willingness to hold a third summit with Kim, but said Washington would leave sanctions in place on Pyongyang.
Third summit with North Korea's chairman in mind, and does that also include?
It could happen. A third summit could happen, and it's step by step. It's not a fast process. I've never said it would be. It's step by step. I enjoy the summits. I enjoy being with the chairman. I think it's been very productive, and it really is. It's a step by step. It's not going to go fast. I've been telling you that for a long time. If it goes fast, it's not going to be the proper deal.
Is a three-way summit with the leaders of the two
Well, that could
Koreas
happen also. I think that would be largely dependent on Chairman Kim, because President Moon will do what's necessary. I know President Moon has been fighting this battle for a long time. He's done an excellent job.
The news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back. To the U.S. now, according to the Department of Homeland Security, an active shooter is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In most cases, active shooters use firearms and there's no pattern or method to their selection of victims. In Maryland, communities from different cities met to discuss what to do in case of an active shooter. Police conducted a civilian response to active shooter events, or CRAZE training at the meeting. In this training, participants will learn how to prepare for and respond to being trapped inside a building during an active shooter event. Our U.S. correspondent from Washington, D.C., Chai Masaka, is at the scene.
Parkland, Florida and Christchurch, New Zealand, places of two recent mass shootings that dominated the headlines. Authorities say that these tragedies can be averted with community involvement and neighborhood trainings to help people prepare for the worst. And this preparedness could mean the difference between losing lives and saving them.
This is a very sensitive yet needed piece of instruction.
So CRAZE is a class that we teach to citizens in an effort to educate them on how to respond to an active shooter situation. So we've been doing active shooter presentations for a couple years now. We've adopted the CRAZE program because Montgomery County Police and our allied agencies use this program to teach to the county schools and to other organizations. So in an effort to be uniformed and teaching the same thing, we went with CRAZE. We've gotten a lot of requests for it from nonprofits, from businesses, private industry, to community groups, to our places of worship. So we're out as much as we can educating people. And then we do also do some scenarios with some groups if the time allows and things like that. Our request for more places of worship has increased more due to other places. The nonprofit organizations and the business organizations has increased as well, and we're doing those more as a group effort in multiple agencies versus where like we come to a specific place of worship and it's just that congregation. So these violence that are occurring more and more, even though we've been out talking to people, a lot of it has been stopped because people are trained, because other people are acting on part of that. But unfortunately, as we've said before in presentations, the shooter there's no specific kind of profile of the shooter. So we can't prepare for every single incident, but we can prepare on how do we prepare for that situation at that time. So avoid, deny, and deter. So avoid, you want to avoid the situation. You want to try to get away, run away from it if you can. Deny, you want to deny entry. You know, you don't want the person coming into the room. You don't want the person coming towards you. And then, to defend. You want to defend yourself in any means possible. We've seen this occur in schools in all age groups. We've seen this occur in malls, in movie theaters, at concert venues, and those have reached out to all ages. So there's not really a specific age group that we're reaching out to. We want everybody informed. In the past few years, we've seen an escalation in active shooter events across the nation, and an effort to make sure that our citizens are aware of what to do during that situation, along with what to expect. Not just what to do in that situation. After an incident occurs, what's the community supposed to do? How do we get together and build from that, and move on? Every day, you hear about incidents that occur, not here just in the nation, but international. It breaks my heart because to hear that somebody has gone to that extent, a lot of times it's somebody who suffered some kind of mental illness or suffered some kind of tragedy in their life, and there was no way for them to find an outlet to get that out. So not just talking about active shooter preparation, but how do we help each other build? How do you go out and help your fellow individuals in finding a way to let that stress out? It is another push that we try to do. So we work a lot with our youth engagement teams. We work with Explorer programs, cadet programs, our youth centers, and letting them know that, hey, when you get stressed in life, there's other outlets to do. There's activities, there's talks, there's people to help you.
We just attended today our CRAZE training, or civilian response to active shooter event, so that we could be prepared for, God forbid, any eventuality, to be able to react to whatever might happen in our life. We don't know exactly the events that could happen in our life, And active shooter events are quite common, unfortunately. There's events that happen in the schools, happen at the faith-based centers. There's that workplace. There's no place that's safe anymore, no safe zone. And so it's making us more concerned about maybe training ourselves in self-defense more, spending more time in discussing what to do in case there's an active shooter or other situation. Wherever we are, we have to discuss what kind of thing we have to do in that moment. For example, if we're in a restaurant, we have to discuss with our family the escape routes. Those things are something I didn't really think about, but this type of seminar made me aware that yes, we have to have that kind of discussion. We have to have a plan in case something happens, whether it's an earthquake or a disaster, active shooter event. It's always good to plan.
Today's session, I learned how to respond to an active shooter event. This involves what to do when a shooter comes in, and I learned to do three things. That is to avoid, deny, and defend. These things we don't normally encounter. We don't see this happening to us, but we hear it in the news. We see it happening all over us. Unless it happens to us, sometimes we think that, what are we going to do? So having the knowledge, having the opportunity to learn something like this today, it's definitely very helpful for us to be prepared when something does happen to us.
Actually, I have to go home and start practicing with my kids, especially when we go to the church, when we go outside to restaurants or any other places. We have to, before getting into the store or to any restaurants, or especially to worship service, we gotta let them know how we have to prevent of getting hurt. You know, if somebody gets a gun and somebody screams a gun, I have to start doing the process with them.
To call 911. Because that's the first what the police recommended to do, and try to protect yourself and protect the rest of them.
What I learned today was about keeping yourself safe during an active shooter situation. It was very informative. I liked how he went through specific scenarios and why it was important to first keep yourself away from the danger and then to address the danger in any way you can, because of course keeping yourself safe is the #1 priority. This seminar was very timely. Like, of course, nowadays we're getting a lot more news on shootings, especially in schools. There is a lot of media coverage of a lot of people who have like mental illnesses who specifically target schools. So I think it's fitting that as somebody who is currently a student in high school, the seminar was very fitting. As a leader in this youth group in the church, what we want to do is, of course, we want to enrich their lives, but a part of that is keeping them safe. So we want them to be able to protect themselves in the case that they're ever in danger. And of course, that's part of our care as leaders of this youth group. Of course, there's like no way to be completely prepared in one of these situations. Like, of course, you're going to panic. I would be very terrified to be in this type of situation, but I feel like more at ease. At least I have more of an idea on what to do in this type of situation.
If you ever have the misfortune to be in an active shooter event,
the recent mass killings have proven that hatred can be lethal, but the number of victims could have been less if more were aware and knew how to react in such fearful situation. And so the communities are now coming together to equip themselves with knowledge and training to defend not only themselves and their loved ones, but also their neighbors. Chaya Massacre for Eagle News, Gaithersburg, Maryland, 1/25.
Thank you, Chai. By definition, a black hole is a completely dark mass in outer space with a very strong force of gravity, from which not even light can escape. Now, back then, images of this phenomenon were only provided through renditions in art and film. Finally, scientists have released an actual image, and Alfred Asenas has more on this developing story. Alfred?
Two of the world's most powerful telescopes, located on the Big Island of Hawaii, played a pivotal role in producing the first ever image of a black hole in outer space. The James Clerk Maxwell Telescope and the Sub-Millimeter Array were part of the Event Horizon Telescope project, a collaboration of 8 telescope facilities stationed in Hawaii, Arizona, Mexico, Spain, Chile, and Antarctica.
It's enormous, and its size is larger than our entire solar system. And that's what we're imaging, is that gas that's flying around at that close to the speed of light, and then it's the light produced by it bent by the strong gravity of the black hole.
The black hole, whose mass is more than 6 billion times that of the Sun, was found in Messier 87, a distant galaxy some 55 million light-years from Earth. Astronomers later collaborated with a language professor from the University of Hawaii for the naming of the phenomenon.
Po Vehi. Po is this fathomless, powerful, ceaseless creation, darkness. Vehi is an adorning embellishment.
As a name is so perfect because it provides real truths about the image of the black hole that we see.
We look at it through the Hawaiian lens as genes, our genealogy. There is this connection between astronomy and this whole question about where we come from.
Both Hawaii-based telescopes are situated on the summit of Mauna Kea, which is also the designated location for the controversial 30-meter telescope, or TMT, whose construction began as early as 2014, but has been halted on numerous occasions. According to protesters, the actual site chosen is considered sacred to native Hawaiian culture. Now, despite the green light or approval by the state Supreme Court for its construction on Mauna Kea, the Native Hawaiians and other opposition groups have vowed to continue pushing back against this project, currently price tagged at $1.4 billion US. Both TMT and the University of Hawaii have acknowledged their concerns, while TMT has supposedly drawn up plans for its alternate location in the Canary Islands out in the Atlantic. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm Alfred Senes, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Alfred. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Health is our most important asset, and it should always be a constant effort to seek ways to take care of it. That includes professional medical help from the best available. The Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated is known as one of the most specialized centers in medical services, backed by several experienced physicians in Chinese medicine. At an accuracy rate of 98%, countless patients who visited Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated have already been treated and cured.
Marami po ospital na napuntahan, pero wala ring nangyayari. Somebody introduced me to Manila-Beijing Medical Associated. After 2 treatments, gumanda ang pakiramdam ko.
My friends introduced me Manila-Beijing Medical Associated, and luckily, I got cured. So I sincerely want to thank the doctors of Manila-Beijing Medical Associated.
For the past 30 years, ang dami ko nang na-take na mga gamot, nothing happened to me. So until one my friend introduced me to Manila-Beijing Medical Associated, you know what? All my illness was cured.
For any health problems or incurable diseases, you can visit Manila-Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated, located at 843B Sabino Padilla Street, Binondo, Manila.
Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. That you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
Business News, this is Cesar Vallejos. PLDT has entered into a multi-million-dollar contract with Cisco to develop its IP transport infrastructure into a more scalable, highly reliable, and automated software-defined 5G-ready facility. Manuel V. Pangilinan, the Filipino Digital Services Providers Chairman, said his group tapped Cisco to design and build a software-based transport system that will use the existing fiber network of the telco. It is intended to fortify customer services with highly dynamic and agile networking capabilities, as well as cybersecurity to safeguard customer data. He added that the investment, which the group expects to grow, will raise the company's fiber network to the next level as it enables the company to move up to the next generation of digital technologies such as 5G, software-defined networking, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things. With this network transformation program, we can empower enterprises and businesses and address their needs for speed, bandwidth, and digital services quickly and seamlessly, noted Joaquim Horn, PLDT Chief Technology and Information Advisor. Cisco Chairman Chuck Robbins said his group will be deploying cutting-edge technology to transform the infrastructure of PLDT so that it can unlock growth opportunities as everything becomes connected. The network transformation project is also part of PLDT's 5G efforts, as it is also seen to support the Internet of Things as well as smart city initiatives. World Bank Group President David Malpass addressed the press about the bank's continued effort to fight extreme poverty during the World Bank Group and International Monetary Fund 2019 spring meetings.
Our mission is clear and important. The bank's role is particularly important in poorer countries where the global economic slowdown that began last year hits people the hardest. On current trends, per capita income in growth in sub-Saharan Africa as a whole is now projected to stay below 1% until at least 2021, which elevates the risk of a further concentration of extreme poverty on the continent. Growth in median income will also be weak. This fact is extremely troubling because it jeopardizes the World Bank's primary goal of ending extreme poverty by 2030. Globally, extreme poverty has dropped to 700 million at the last count. That's down from much higher levels in the 1990s and 2000s. But the number of people living in extreme poverty is on the rise in sub-Saharan Africa. By 2030, nearly 9 in 10 extremely poor people will be Africans, and half of the world's poor will be living in fragile and conflict-affected settings. This calls for urgent action by countries themselves and by the global community.
He said the clear mission and focus of the World Bank is alleviating and eliminating extreme poverty as well as boosting shared prosperity.
One of the key things in getting good growth in countries is full inclusion of women in the economy. This is a huge resource. It's particularly apparent in Africa, and it's something the bank is working hard on.
Malpass said there was no need for a restructuring of the development lender, though he'd like to see it focus its programs on specific benchmarks, such as raising median incomes. He also said the bank will fight climate change, which he described as a key problem. The U.S. under Trump has pulled back from international efforts against global warming. Asia's growth is forecast to be 5.4% in 2019 and 2020, accounting for more than 60% of global growth, according to the International Monetary Fund.
Despite the faster than expected slowdown of global economy, the outlook for Asia-Pacific region remains relatively stable. The region continues to account for more than 60% of the global growth, but downside risks have increased, including faster than expected deceleration in global growth and trade, the possibility of renewed trade tension, higher oil prices, and global financial market volatility. Therefore, it is a little bit still too early to say that spring has come in the region.
The IMF urged countries in the region to pursue policies and reforms to support the expansion and promote sustainability and resilience. Trade uncertainties remain, but the IMF is hopeful the U.S. and China will resolve their differences. Ri outlined a few important factors of any deal.
Few things will be important. I think that probably the confirmation that tariff will not increase or even better to reduce. Okay, and then this agreement should be not a short-term agreement. Then it gives us some kind of confidence to the market. It can be a more fundamental agreement between the China and U.S. and others. Basically, that means that the structural issues that has been discussed, such as fair trade and the intellectual property and the structural side or more market opening, those things has to be an important element that otherwise this, this agreement may be short-lived. So kind of longer-lasting agreement will be very important.
And the IMF said growth-friendly fiscal consolidation needed to address Japan's high debt, especially given its aging population.
Beyond the short run, a growth-friendly fiscal consolidation strategy would be needed in Japan. And this has to include further increases and gradual increases in the consumption tax, and to levels that are about 10%, and then combined with concrete measures to deal with the spending implications of the aging population. Defining and announcing such a plan now can build fiscal space even in the short run.
Paul Thompson, director of the IMF's European department, says uncertainty related to Brexit has contributed to a slowdown in investment in Britain.
We expect growth to gradually recover during 2019. This is partly because some of the sharp slowdown was due to temporary factors. For instance, as you know, relating to the automobile industry in Germany. Clearly, there are important downside risks. You are familiar with them, notably from the intensification of trade tensions and a still uncertain Brexit outcome. although the fact that a cliff edge Brexit has been avoided for now is certainly a welcome development. The UK economy has seen a growth close to 1.2% this year. This is a 0.3% downward revision. This is a result of an appreciable slowdown in investment due to the uncertainty about Brexit.
The IMF highlighted uncertainty surrounding Brexit and trade conflicts around the world as a key risk to global growth, which is slowing this year. European leaders on Wednesday agreed to delay Brexit by up to 6 months, preventing what could have been a chaotic exit from the EU on Friday without a deal to govern economic ties with the bloc. But even so, IMF Director Christine Lagarde said this effectively kicked the can down the road.
That gives a bit more time. On the other hand, it's obvious that it's continued uncertainty, and it does not resolve other than by postponing what would have been a terrible outcome, because we believe that in terms of economic consequences, the no-deal Brexit would have been a terrible outcome.
European Central Bank Chief Mario Draghi on Wednesday warned of risks weighing on growth in the eurozone, describing current economic indicators as weak.
The risks surrounding the euro area growth outlook remain tilted to the downside on account of the persistence of uncertainties related to geopolitical factors, the threat of protectionism, and vulnerabilities in emerging markets.
However, the ECB chief echoed the International Monetary Fund forecast for the Eurozone by saying there is currently little risk of recession. The estimated probability of recession remains low, added the Italian banking boss. A Japanese court on Friday ruled that Carlos Ghosn will remain in detention until April 22 as prosecutors grilled the former Nissan boss over allegations of financial misconduct. His lawyers immediately appealed the decision and have already asked the Supreme Court to intervene in his detention. But unless the appeal succeeds, the 65-year-old will be held in custody at a detention center in Tokyo until April 22, whereupon authorities will either have to press formal charges, release him, or rearrest him if they feel he has other accusations to answer. Prosecutors are looking into allegations that Ghosn siphoned off some $5 million from funds allegedly transferred from Nissan to a dealership in Oman and spent the money on a luxury super yacht. Ghosn has not been formally charged over these allegations, but the tycoon does already face 3 separate charges. 2 of these relate to millions of dollars in salary believed to have been concealed from shareholders. The 3rd charge is that he sought to shift personal investment losses to company books. Ghosn denies all allegations and lashed out in a video message shown on April 9 at what he termed a plot by backstabbing Nissan executives scared of closer integration with French partner firm Renault. Ghosn's wife, Carol, has increasingly become a key figure in the case and was questioned by authorities on Thursday. According to a source close to the matter, some of the $5 million for the yacht was funneled to a British Virgin Islands listed company which has Carol Ghosn registered as president. Disney announced that its video streaming service would launch in the US in November, spotlighting its blockbuster-making studios as it takes on powerhouse Netflix. The company said that after launching in the US on November 12 at $6.99 per month, Disney Plus will gradually expand internationally, starting in Europe. Disney is among some of the biggest names in the media and tech world, gearing up to move into streaming in what could be a major challenge to market leader Netflix. Disney plans to make the streaming service available in all major regions of the world within 2 years. The service will offer Disney's films and TV shows along with a library it acquired from Rupert Murdoch's 21st Century Fox. That includes the Star Wars and Marvel superhero franchises and ABC television content. Last month, Walt Disney Company closed its $71 billion deal for the film and television assets of 21st Century Fox as the legacy producers controlling Hollywood seek to fend off Netflix and other streaming firms, including Amazon. Details about Disney Plus were shared by executives at an annual investor day where Chief Executive Bob Iger said the streaming service would combine the strengths of Disney and the assets acquired from Fox. Disney Plus will combine offerings from powerhouse brands including Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars with content from Hulu and sports network ESPN. That's it for business news. This is Cesar Vallejos. I'm one with 25 Eagle News International. We'll be back. Stay with us.
The Vancouver Giants beat the Seattle Thunderbirds 3-2 at the Lanchley Event Center to go up 3-2 in their best-of-7 WHL Western Conference opening round playoff series. Here's Anthony Sevilla for the update.
Fans at the Langley Event Center celebrated as the Vancouver Giants took Game 5 on home ice with a final score of 3-2 over the Seattle Thunderbirds, who now take a 3-2 lead in this best-of-7 series.
The energy from the fans created an intense playoff atmosphere. Both Vancouver and Seattle were competitive throughout the entire game. It took great effort and aggressiveness from both squads. However, it was the home team Giants who were able to come out on top. Giants forward Owen Hardy led all scorers with 2 assists and was named 3rd star of the game. Both goaltenders in net had stellar performances. Roddy Ross from Seattle earned 2nd star honors, making 30 saves on the night, where 2 of them were on breakaway chances, and another huge stop from a 2-on-0 in the 3rd period. Trent Miner was the 1st star of the game. He finished the game with 25 saves for Vancouver. The Giants gave their thoughts on the win, the experience of playing in the playoffs, and also the mindset heading forward in the series.
Playoffs is what everyone lives for. It's what hockey players love to play in. So whenever you're playing in front of a full rink with a high-paced game, it's a lot of fun. Whenever you have a chance to eliminate a team, it's the hardest game in the series. So we're going to have to put our work hats on for tomorrow.
It was a grinder. It was a playoff game. Both teams played well, and we ended up finding an opportunity to score in the third period. It's all about blocking shots, taking hits to make plays, being physical, getting to hard areas. There's not much time and space out there, so it's going to be those kind of games that we're going to see from here on in. Well, that's the second period. We took two reactionary penalties, and they know better than that. They just got caught up in it. It was a great atmosphere in here tonight. It's going to be a great atmosphere tomorrow. We just got to make sure that we're focused on the task at hand, and we can't get wrapped up in the emotions. They're going to make mistakes. It's correcting them, and they learn from it.
We came into this game really desperate, and the way we came out in the first period was how we needed to finish the game, and that's how we did it. We needed to bear down for the win, shut it down, and that's what we did, and it was nice to see. Once you get into the mind games and things like that, it's not something you want to get into, and that's something we need to learn here. And I mean, a couple of times we went down the wrong road, but we'll learn from it. I mean, things like that will get to us, but it's just the nature of the game. And I mean, when we limit those things and we just play our game, it's good for us.
Left winger Nolan Volkan talks about the Thunderbirds' mindset heading into the next game by staying motivated and positive despite being shorthanded in the series. He also mentions the atmosphere on the road and the excitement on heading home to play for the fans.
Yeah, I mean, kind of go into it clear-minded, just like any other playoff game. Try not to think about it too much, and let's go out there and play hard. Obviously, they're going to want to close it out, and we're going to want to stay alive. So it'll be a good game, and I'm sure both teams are going to fight hard. So we're looking forward to it. Obviously, big crowds are always fun to play against, whether they're cheering for you or against you. So the atmosphere is great. Kudos to Vancouver. I mean, it was really fun to play in this environment. It's always nice to go back home and play in a rink you're familiar with, I guess you could say. I mean, we're excited to get back there and excited to get going.
With a win on the road in Seattle, the Giants look to advance to the next round of the playoffs, while the Thunderbirds will try to force a Game 7 to save their season. From the Langley Event Center, I'm Anthony Sevilla, 1 with 25.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Eagle News International, I'm Alma Angeles, always 1 with 25. Good night.